Greetings, and welcome to this episode in the series of videos on Lidar with ArcGIS Pro. This series is brought to you by AmericaView in partnership with the College of Natural Resources and Environment at Virginia Tech, the Virginia Cooperative Extension, and GeoTed UAS. I'm Cherie Aukland, and I'll be your guide. We demonstrated in the last two chapters adding Lidar data as separate tiles and then combining those tiles into one last data set. As we saw in those chapters, ArcGIS Pro does not display the entire point cloud, and in some instances does not display any part of the point cloud until zoomed into a portion of the tile. In this chapter, we'll introduce the settings that control the display of LiDAR points and how to display only certain classification codes and/or returns. I'm starting with the Mesa County, Colorado last data set from Chapter 10, which is a 2D map template. Here you see only the footprint of the data at the full extent. In the Contents tab, note the indication, Data Percentage 0. So none of the point cloud data is being displayed yet. Let's zoom in. Notice how the percentage changes as we zoom in. Here we see that only 4.4% of the point cloud is displayed within the viewer. And zooming in farther now, 19.5% is displayed. Let's review where to change some of the display settings. Select the data set if it isn't selected already, and go to the Appearance tab of the last dataset layer toolbar. In the Visibility Range group, In Beyond and Out Beyond control the minimum and maximum ranges for the visibility of all of the displayed data in the project, including both the footprint and the point cloud. Let's change the setting for In Beyond and see what happens when we zoom. Depending on the scale, the footprint or the point cloud may or may not be visible. Let's change this back to none. If these settings only need to change for one specific LiDAR dataset, they can also be changed in the properties of that particular dataset, here in the General tab. Make sure we're zoomed in so that some of the point cloud is visible. In the Effects group are three tools. Layer Transparency allows for seeing through the layer to any data below the point cloud. A better way to visualize data beneath the LiDAR data is to use the Swipe tool. We're just going to click on the Swipe button, and then we can drag the display revealing what is beneath the selected layer. You'll find this tool extremely useful when investigating a new location or when classifying unassigned LiDAR points. Unfortunately, Swipe is not a toggle button, so to turn it off, go to the Map tab and select the Explore button. Now heading back to the Appearance tab, the next tool, Flicker, briefly turns the top layer off and on until you toggle the Flicker button by clicking a second time. In the Drawing group, symbology will be discussed in the next chapter. File Extent controls the color of the footprint. Let's change it to another color here, say green. In the Point Thinning group are the controls for display of the entire LiDAR point cloud, meaning all classifications. The settings you see here are the default settings for this dataset. These settings may differ between datasets depending on the number of points in the dataset and the density of the points. The most important of these three settings is the last point density. Let's zoom in to 1 to 1000 scale. Then let's slide back and forth between minimum and maximum to see how it changes the display of the point cloud. The points are much denser at maximum, of course. In the Filters group, we'll save surface constraints for a later chapter. Let's open Last Points. The default is to show all points. Let's choose ground and then zoom out to 1 to 5,000. Now the only points displayed are those classified as ground. Let's choose non-ground. For this data set, that's all of the other points. Let's reset to all points before proceeding. The types of points that are displayed can also be changed in 2 other locations. Let's right-click on the data set and go to Last Filters. Here you see the same options as on the toolbar. And you can just go to Properties and Last Filter and uncheck the point type to remove it from the display. There is a difference here though, you have a lot more options. This Mesa County LiDAR data was set up with a 2D map template. Let's open the San Luis Valley 3D scene from Chapter 13. Make sure the last data set is selected so that we activate the Last Data Set Layer toolbar and go to the Appearance tab. Notice the Full Resolution button is not available in a scene template. Let me click back over here to the 2D. In 2D you see full resolution. In 3D you don't. All the other settings are here though. So we can choose to go to Density Min. We can choose to go to Density Max. We can look at ground points only. And we can look at non-ground points. It appears, though, that the image did not display correctly for non-ground. Let's change the settings back to all points and look at this a different way through the Properties Last Filter. For the classification codes, uncheck all of them except Unassigned. And let's click on OK. The display still looks strange. It's likely that some of these points are ground, but have not yet been assigned. I encourage you to change these settings at your discretion to see how the different settings change the display or the appearance of the dataset. When you're finished, be sure to restore the defaults. The next chapter, Chapter 16, discusses changing the symbology of the point cloud.